Hello and welcome to episode 124 of the Wisdom from the Akasha podcast. My name is Suzie, I am your host, and I am an Akashic Records teacher and practitioner. Something I want to talk about today is the question, are you channeling new modalities through? And this is based upon what I'm seeing in my one-to-one work with clients and also what was coming through for the energetic update for May from the Akashic Records. So I'll pop a link into the show notes for the blog post that I wrote if you haven't come across that one. In mentorship, what we're able to do is we're able to do really deep work with the Akashic Records. So what I see a lot with my one-to-one mentees is they're committed to the work. There's always lots of homework in mentorship, and they go through this process of letting go of a lot of the energetic stagnation that they might be carrying, with, of course, the assistance of the Akashic Records. They'll do lots of deprogramming, deconditioning, and they start the more direct path practices. So what happens is when there's this change from just doing the indirect path practices, so just doing the healing, just doing the alchemy, just doing the transmutation, and they start moving into abiding in unconditional love, Akashic bathing that we talked about last time, really connecting into the heart and operating from the level of the heart. What starts to happen is they start to channel these new modalities through. So they start to receive guidance and input from their soul, from their guides, from higher aspects of themselves around these new modalities. And this can be very exciting because, of course, these new modalities that are coming forward at this time are to help the collective and to help these individuals be of service to the collective. And that can be really exciting. However, it can also be a little bit scary because if you go on to Google some of the stuff that's coming through for you, there might be no answers and you might think this doesn't mean anything. So what I want to talk about today is just why this happens and how to help yourself navigate it if this is you and you resonate with this and you think, oh, maybe I am starting to channel these new modalities through, just to give you some practical tips as to how to work with that. First of all, let's take a look at what is happening typically, and then let's get into kind of how you can help yourself through this. So just as a kind of for your information, what I'm going to be sharing with you is the guidance that my Akashic Records business guides offered me when I started to channel new modalities through for the very, very first time. And this is a process that I've used time and again, and this is what I'm going to be sharing with you. So as always, take what resonates, leave what doesn't, but I hope that this is going to give you a little bit of a steer. For most people, this is going to start with study. So the people that this I tend to see happening with the most is people who have studied. So they've researched different topics, they've got different qualifications, they've looked at different systems. And what this is doing is this is providing the foundation for those new modalities to come through on. So no one can know everything. Even with all the access to the information that we have in our modern age, no one is going to know everything. No one is going to be able to channel everything through. So learning from different teachers, different books, different modalities can be really helpful to give you these foundations. And this is why it's important to pay attention to that magnetic center and go to those practices and topics and teachers that you feel really called to, because that curiosity, that desire to move towards that is leading to you then developing the foundations for these new modalities to come through. So once that foundation is laid, so the knowledge is gained and practiced, and that's the most important bit. So it's not just kept in the head as a theory. It's not just, I understand these topics. I'm actually putting this into practical application. And that knowledge is then becoming wisdom by becoming embodied. Then this process is going to begin. Now, it's true that it used to be that you had to have many years of service under your belt with a foundational practice before a new modality would start to make itself known to you. But because of what's happening with collective consciousness and the expansion of collective consciousness and where we're at as a collective, what's happening is that these new modalities are coming through much, much quicker. So it might even be that these modalities are coming through before you've even formally stepped into your role of service. And that's certainly something that I'm seeing. And what happens is that taking that first step into that role of service and actually getting out and being of service to others actually then makes energetic space for more and more of the new modality to come through, because it's very unusual that someone's going to spend a couple of days channeling a new modality and they've got the whole thing. It tends to come in piece by piece by piece. What this can look like on a practical level is it may be that you're doing a traditional technique, traditional modality that you've learned, you're following the steps, but then something comes through and guides you to do something in a slightly different way. So it's like an alteration to or an expansion of an existing practice that you're doing. It might look like you're receiving downloads about different ways to work with something. So again, altering something, so building upon that foundation that you've already received with the traditional practice. For other people, it might be that you're receiving downloads about a technique or signs or symbols or different ways of working with energy in your meditation or in your spiritual practice. Now, when this starts to happen, my advice is to grab a notebook and a pen, the old-fashioned way, and just start writing down what you're receiving. Just call the notebook New Modality and then just start writing everything down. As I said, it's unlikely you're going to get everything in one go. So having this notebook and having it to hand will be really helpful, and you can start to add to this. Now, to start with, it might seem just like a lot of strange words, symbols. You might be like, I have no idea where this is going. Okay, but stick with it. What's happening is you're opening to receive and you're acknowledging receipt of the information by putting it down on a piece of paper, which makes space for more of it to come through. It's very normal for this information to drop in at very inappropriate times. So that might be while you're in the bath, while you're walking the dog, while you're in the shower, while you're driving. Very normal. So again, have some form of just noting everything down, but keep everything in this one book that you're going to have. This action of getting everything down indicates and signals to your guides that you're receiving this new modality and you're paying attention to it and you're making space for more of it to come through. The tricky bit, of course, and where Bob, the ego, loves to come in, is impatience. It can be really exciting as you're starting to get these new pieces of information through, this new guidance through, even though it might not make a lot of sense just yet, and then it might all go quiet. And you're like, okay, so there's no more information coming through, there's no more guidance coming through, but you'll still feel and you'll still know that it's not finished yet, it's not completed yet. This is actually completely normal. So when this happens, the most important thing is to not start chasing, to not start trying to force the information through, to definitely not start letting the brain try to get hold of this and try to invent the new modality. Just carry on with your spiritual practice, carry on with what you're doing. It will return. But this impatience and this chasing is just the ego coming in, and we don't want the ego involved in this process. If you do come across one of these gaps, or you might be in one right now, couple of ways that you can really help yourself to increase the receptivity and the ability to receive would be, number one, just getting out and being of service. So just doing what you were doing, just continuing on, that's going to make that energetic space. And by making that energetic space, you're making space for stuff to be received in. Of course, number two, Akashic bathing that we talked about last week, that's designed to help increase your receptivity. And then number three is just look at how you're spending your time and see if there is any space for you just to add more of that neutral time in. So can you grab 10 minutes before you maybe need to go and pick the kids up from school? Can you go and sit in the garden while it's beautiful up in the Northern Hemisphere and have a cup of tea out there and just be, rather than having to do something? Look at if there's just time in your day that you can maybe start adding that in. If you're in doubt and you're like, no, I definitely haven't got any time, I would highly recommend you look at your screen time. Always a fun exercise to do and see, okay, maybe rather than spending that time scrolling on social media, I can just grab 10 minutes of it to just increase my neutral time, which is going to increase my ability to receive. It's very normal that you set out with all these good intentions, that you're going to spend all of this time in neutral energy and you're dedicated to it, and then life happens. If this is happening, you're starting to channel these new modalities through, but you're in this gap, just use it as a sign to go, okay, I just want to revisit where I am and where I'm not. doing those neutral practices, not in a way that we're going to beat ourselves up about and go, oh my God, I've slipped back into old bad habits, just as a way of going, I want to get back into that to enhance this receptivity. Another thing that you can do with this, if you are starting to receive this information through and you're a bit confused and you're like, I have no idea what this stuff is, take what you have received into your spiritual practice. So the Akashic records are great for this, because you're able to go in and go, okay, what is this symbol about? What is this download about? How can I better incorporate this into my practices? But if you're not yet doing an Akashic Records practice, take it into whatever spiritual practice you have and just bring the information forward, or bring part of the information into your practice and just allow the information to be added upon. So in that energy of your spiritual practice and connecting into your guides and into higher beings and higher aspects of yourself, you're going to find that you maybe can bring more through. Now, this is different to actively chasing. And again, we have to be very mindful of our own energy. Am I going into every bit of my spiritual practice just because I want more of this to come through? That's different to, okay, I'm a bit confused about this. I'd like some clarity. If I get it, great. And if I don't, that's also okay. So looking at the energy behind that is important. And then lastly, if you've tried all of this, you're doing all of this and you're still in this gap, or you're still a bit confused, just forget about it and get on with your life. And I don't mean that flippantly. What I mean is that anything that you need to receive, anything that your soul needs to do while it's here as part of its mission, as part of its service, is going to be received, and it's all going to unfold in due course. Always remember that any time there's this impatience, this chasing, that's the ego. The soul is never impatient. The soul is never in a hurry to do anything. So worst case scenario, you just sit there with an unfinished modality, a little notebook to one side with some information in it that you don't know what you're going to do with, and it might be a year passes and then all of a sudden more starts to come through. But this is that process of bringing in new information, building up existing modalities so that you can be of service. And the beautiful guides and beings that we have supporting us through this time on earth and supporting us in our work want you to be able to do that. They want you to bring these things through, but we have to remember that there's a divine time for everything. Worst case scenario, if you get a little bit frustrated with it, just go off and live your normal life and allow it to start coming back through as and when it will. So I hope this has given you a bit of guidance if you're maybe experiencing these new modalities coming through as to how to navigate that, some of the kind of stages that you're going to go through with this and what to expect. And also some tips on just how to be open to receive these things through. Don't expect to get all the answers on the internet. Don't expect to get all the answers on Google's with this. As I said, this is new modalities. This is bringing things through. And a lot of the time, the only way you're going to see how effective these new modalities are and how helpful they are to your clients and to the people who you're assigned to be of service to is by actually putting them into practice. And I appreciate that can be a little bit scary, but try to get excited about it as well, because these new modalities are really going to help the expansion of the collective consciousness at this time that we are in. So I hope you found this episode helpful, and I will of course see you next time for the next episode.